The state government proposal for the extension of the shooting range in the small town of Hilltop in the Southern Highlands has been riddled with controversy over the last 4 years. The $6 million project has been put on hold after the Department of Recreation admitted its plan to clear 1,000 hectares of land is different to the one approved in March. The Hilltop Residents Action Group has rallied against the proposal mainly because of environmental concerns.
The crux of our argument is environmental on numerous fronts. In the first place, the site was Bargo State Conservation Area, completely surrounded by Blue Mountains World Heritage. In fact, within 3 metres of Blue Mountains World Heritage on numerous sides of the site. And if it wasn't Blue Mountains World Heritage abutting the fence line, it was Natai National Park, or Bargo State Conservation Area, or Bargo River State Conservation Area. And the 1,000 hectare site itself was zoned Bargo State Conservation Area. And prior to any development application being lodged or approved, the government put in a brand new bodgy piece of legislation called the Amendment of Areas Bill under the National Parks Act, and excised out of the Bargo State Conservation Area 1,000 hectares, specifically for the purpose of building shooting ranges.
Do you think that, there's any real difference between the World Heritage land and
No.
the conservation?
None. It's a fence line.
Yeah.
It's a written boundary on a map. Interestingly, when the Bargo State Conservation Area was zoned conservation area and that specific piece of land, it was because I think the Minister for Environment at that point in time, I can't remember who he was, but he wanted to get a green tick on his box, and so he wanted it designated Bargo Conservation Area prior to the Natai National Park being named. And had he have waited, it would have become Natai National Park, but because it already had the conservation status, and all of Natai National Park is Blue Mountains World Heritage. So we're talking about a piece of land that has no significant difference at all.
So why do you think they chose Bargo?
The reason they chose that area is because an existing shooting range sat there and it was Crown land, so it could be taken. They were supposed to do site suitability studies prior to taking the land, and they didn't. That was, we saw a letter from around 2004 when Bob Carr was Premier promising the site to the Shooters Party, and basically I think they thought that nobody would notice, that nobody in Hilltop would have the wherewithal or finance to fight them, or the brains, and that they'd get away with it. So they also enacted some brand new legislation back in 2005, just before they excised the site. Again, this was all before any development application had been lodged or approved. So obviously it was a fait accompli that regardless of what application was put in, it was going to be approved because they'd already taken the land for that purpose. They did it ass about face. They didn't put in an application and see if it was approved and then excise the site. They did it the other way around. So they always intended to build it, which means no due consultation, public consultation process was ever expected to be carried out.
So did they talk to anyone about it?
No one. They took the site before the public even knew about it and transferred it to the Department of Sport out of the Department of Environment.
On your website it says that the shooting range will deliver tons of lead into the Sydney water catchment area.
Yes.
What lead, where's this coming from?
What happens is shotgun ranges are massive lead polluters. The shot from shotguns is a spray of lead pellets. Obviously a conservation area in water catchment would be the most extreme site to put something like that on. All throughout the process the department has made noises about making sure that they meet US guidelines on protecting contamination from shooting ranges, because it's been realised in recent years that shooting ranges are a massively contaminating industry. In America there's massive lead problems with shooting ranges, very, very strict guidelines which weren't going to be implemented here. So we've had to fight the whole way along to have those US guidelines for contamination in shooting ranges applied to this development. Regardless of that, the costs of remediation of the damage, the ongoing damage from shooting complexes is millions and millions of dollars for the life of the complex. The state government is broke. There's nurses, doctors, police, transport, community facilities, etc., that are far more in need of $6 to $10 million of funding that's been delivered for this project than shooting ranges. And this shooting range is specifically to deliver to only 1,500 shooters who live in the Illawarra, who aren't even residents of the local area and don't even pay rates in the local area.
Go ahead. Do you think local area needs an infrastructure upgrade?
Absolutely. What we're talking about is a small village that it's a one-way in, one-way out to this complex. They have to traverse the main street of Hilltop. Now, Hilltop's a village of about 2,000 residents. There's no footpaths through the main street, there's no pedestrian crossing, there's no parking, there's no verges, there's no gutters. Women and families and kids on bikes, walking dogs and with prams have to use the road, which they do, because it's a very quiet village. This development, at present, the existing shooting range, the one shooting range that is there, only has 7 targets, and it uses about 15, maximum 20 shooters 2 days a week. And they can traverse through the main street without anyone noticing, which is fine, and everybody's been happy to have that happen, nobody's cared. But in the case of the complex that's being built, they're building 5 new shooting ranges, and we're going from 7 outdoor shooting, firing positions to 200. They estimate instead of 12 shooters a day, it will be 400 shooters a day. So through the main street, we're expecting an increase in traffic of 40%.
So are most of the residents behind your course?
Yes. We've had huge response from the local community, a core group of people who have really fought it over 4 years now from when we first heard about it. And luckily we've had community funding from various sources to assist us, a massive amount of environmental groups in the Greens helping us. And today we're still in court, in the Land and Environment Court as I speak, because clearing commenced on the site without a further referral to the Federal Minister on the EPBC issues. We contacted him last month. He did not reply. We contacted him again about a week ago as the bulldozers moved in, and he has told us that he will review it, but he won't stop the clearing whilst the review is underway, which means by the time they determine that it is shale sandstone transitional forest, the site will be cleared anyway.
It sounds like you've done about everything apart from strap yourselves to the trees. So where do you think...
That's our next step.
Yeah.
That is literally our next step. That's what we're planning for the next week or so, if we have to.
It isn't all bad. The lady who owns the corner shop in Hilltop says the development will be favourable for business in the area. I spoke to Lynn Davey, the tourism spokesperson for Wallandilly Shire Council, about the plans. Do you think such a big rifle range will draw more shooters into the area?
Oh, I think so, and they're talking fairly elite athletes as well. Now elite athletes live elsewhere, so when they're here, they're going to be staying in all the motels and eating in the restaurants. Even right down to the cars they drive, they'll be buying petrol at the local general store. You know. So I think any sort of commercial activity is quite good. It has to be weighed off against the negatives, of course, but in the position I'm in, of course, I'm pro-business, so yeah, not at all costs to the environment, but they would also find villages of Hilltop and the next door neighbours of Balmoral and Kylavale. You would start seeing bed and breakfast facilities popping up, and you know, your home-based business sector can all feed off that. There's a lot of jobs that will be created, you know, from mowing the lawn at the Sporting Shooters Centre to, you know, manning the canteen to answering the telephone type jobs. So there's good potential there for the people in the local area, as long as the people who are running it remember to shop local and employ local people. You know, recognising this type of facility would have to bring in specialists with specialist skills. All of that, you know, if these people rent the empty houses, buy a house in the town and spread their money around the local economy. So yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
The tourism spokesperson might not have a problem with it, but the community does. So where do you think this would be at if you guys didn't fight for it?
It'd be built. It'd be built. Massive amounts of public taxpayers' money would be siphoned off to the shooters' parties. We have had admitted to us by ministers in the state government that this is a payoff to the shooters' party.
Which ministers?
The Minister for Water, who controls the catchment, has admitted to us that it is a political payoff. The other thing being that if they don't clear the site by the 1st of November, which is 10 days from now, they can't touch the site till after the election. And therefore, if the Liberal government gets in, there's a possibility they'll revoke the consent. So we need to get through to the 1st of November without significant damage to the site as well. And there's a good chance that we could do that. If they can't get the site completely cleared by the 1st of November, they can't touch it.
It's a clash of worlds, the business sector up against the environment, the government against a small community. It seems there are no winners in this dispute.